Hello and welcome to another episode of Back Nine Report. We are happy to have our good friend Kieran Clark in with us tonight from Scotland. Carlos can't be here. We're sad to say he's busy. He's working. He's actually got a job. He's working. So Kieran and I, we just screw around. We got time to talk golf all the time. Kieran, welcome back in, buddy.
Well, thank you very much, Fred, for that great introduction there. I would like to reassure the viewers that I do actually have a job of my own. We're not just total layabouts here doing nothing, but I'm glad to be talking golf with you tonight, Fred, because obviously the PGA Championship at Southern Hills is a fascinating backdrop in the game right now. A lot of storm clouds, a lot of controversy in the background, but when we get to it, we're coming to one of America's classic major venues and a fantastic field. So many of the top players in great form. And of course, Tiger's here and looking very good, I've got to say. So I think it's going to be a fascinating week ahead. And obviously, what has been this, so far a compelling year for good reasons, for bad reasons. More of that to come in the future. But at the moment, we've got a great championship here at Southern Hills. And I'm looking forward to delving into it with you tonight.
Yeah, we're getting kind of pretty excited. I mean, we've had the Masters. We had Scotty Scheffler win that. Now we're on to the second major of the year since they've changed the schedule around a couple of years ago. As you mentioned, there is a bit of controversy to this PGA being held at Southern Hills. You mentioned Tiger. You mentioned Phil. Of course, there's always the LIV Investment Series hanging around out there. But this event was originally to be held at Trump Bedminster, if you remember, in New Jersey, just across the river from Manhattan. After the January 21 insurrection in the nation's capital, when Trump was blamed as an instigator in the uprising, the PGA decided to pull Bedminster from the rota and substituted Southern Hills, which had been originally scheduled for 2030. So the second major of 2022 is going to be held in Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa. They have hosted 16 championships since 1945 there, Kieran. Originally designed by Perry Maxwell, Gil Hanse updated the course in 2019, making it even better. It just looks absolutely beautiful. Yeah. The club opened near the end of the Great Depression in 1935, was financed by the Phillips family, owners of the Phillips 66 Oil Company. Babe Saharius, there's a name we all know, right? Won a U.S. women's amateur here in 1946, 4 years before she helped found the LPGA. Tommy Bolt and Retief Goosen both won U.S. Opens at Southern Hills. Dave Stockton, Raymond Floyd, Nick Price, and Tiger Woods, there's a name we know, all won PGA Championship here in the past. And last year, Alex Checa won the senior PGA at Southern Hills. So, Kieran, my question for you to start off the show tonight. This is one of the legendary courses in the country. We have seen Southern Hills several times over the years. It's in America's heartland, provides a true test for the best golfers in the world. What are your thoughts of Southern Hills as a major championship venue?
Well, you said it there, Fred. It is one of the quintessential American championship layouts. When you think of the great American major venues, you think of Oakmont or Pebble Beach, Winged Foot, Shinnecock, Baltusrol, and I think Southern Hills is right in that bracket as well, especially now that it's been restored back to its foundations by Gil Hanse, who's obviously a genius at course design. But he's taken it back to those original principles from Perry Maxwell back in the 1930s, but he's given it that modern twist. This is a really challenging layout, but one that's certainly different to what we saw back in 2007. What I recall from that event, Fred, was the fact that it was swelteringly hot. I mean, the guys were almost literally melting. It was that hot. But of course, that was August versus May, much cooler at this time of year. But a great layout and fascinating, really. And for me, Fred, not sure whether you agree or not, but I think the PGA of America, for a long time now, have done an absolutely fabulous job at setting up their major courses. Certainly compared to the USGA. I mean, the championship courses they have for the PGA are typically, they're challenging, they're testing, but they're fair. They reward good shots, punish bad shots. There isn't too much about it that's gimmicky. I thought Kiowa Island last year was one of the best major venues I've seen for years, and I think this one has that potential too. You talk about the challenge of it, Fred, and some of the players have been talking about the fact that the short game is going to be really important around here. It's a very tough course, tee to green, a little bit more open than it was back in 07. Fewer trees around the golf course now. bit wider off the tee, still challenging, but around the greens at this course it's very difficult because the greens are quite small, they're undulating. Jordan Spieth said recently that effectively the greens played around 3/4 of the size that they actually are, a lot of runoffs, so a lot of really difficult tight pitches.
What does that sound like to you when you talk about that? What other golf courses would you see every year that sounds a lot like that?
Well, absolutely. Augusta National, and it has that feel about it where it is, I think, those kind of players. We talk about Augusta every April, Fred. The great iron players and obviously the great short game players and putters do well there at the Masters every single year. And I think that's the kind of template of player that we're looking for this week. So for me, Fred, the PGA of America, Kerry Haigh is the guy that sets the courses up. He does a fantastic job with that every year. And I think Sutherland Hills is going to be a great venue for the PGA this week.
Perry Maxwell was the designer, the original designer, and set these greens up to begin with. And he's also been involved with some other great courses around the country. Prairie Dunes, for example. Also Pine Valley, he was involved with a little bit. George Crum had advised with him and was involved in that. Augusta National that we talked about. Colonial Country Club, Marion in Philadelphia. And Crystal Downs, which is right up the road from where I'm at here in Cadillac, Michigan. The greens there are just, oh my goodness, they are diabolical. They're just 4 and 5 putts. You can be on the green, you can putt yourself right off of it. So he knows a little bit about making difficult and tricky greens. And so that's what we'll see this week. Coming into the week, the biggest news, Tiger's always the biggest news, not this week. The biggest news coming in this week is that Phil Mickelson has declined to defend his PGA Championship title that he won last year at the Ocean Course on Kiawah Island. What do you make of Phil staying away from the PGA, Kieran?
Well, I think ultimately from a golf perspective, take away the controversy and the live golf investment and the invitational there and what Phil has said and the outcry around that, all of it self-inflicted. I think from a golf perspective, it's just sad that we're in the scenario where last year Phil achieved a remarkable victory at Kiawah Island. That's an amazing win, came from nowhere to become the oldest major winner in history. He had his own piece of history that belonged to him. It should have been the capstone of a iconic
He finally
career.
Stepped out of Tiger's shadow and had something
Absolutely.
that was his.
Yeah, 100%. And it should have been his. It should have been his legacy. And what's happened since has been truly astonishing. What an unbelievable collapse it has been, a fall from grace. I mean, the win last year was unexpected. What's come since then has been even more unexpected. So I think it's very sad, from where we were from last year to now. But as I said, it's all self-inflicted. Phil is choosing himself not to get involved in the PGA or indeed at the Masters back in April. He's not wanting to put himself back into that spotlight yet. Only he and those closest to him know exactly why that is, whether he's afraid of tough questions or facing the scrutiny or not. I actually think it's more to do with the fact I don't think he really knows what he wants to say. Because, Phil's a guy that can deal with tough questions. He can, go around. He's very good at dealing with the media, both good and bad. He talks a very good game, obviously. He always says he's the smartest guy in the room. That's been certainly proven wrong in the past year. But I think Phil right now is in a position where he just doesn't know where he's at. He's obviously dealing with stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about. And he doesn't know quite what his future is going to be or what he even wants his future to be and how he's going to articulate that. And when that's going to happen, we don't know. But I think ultimately from where we were last year, Fred, to now, I think it's sad and as a scenario for the game that one of the great champions is in this scenario, particularly after what he did last year. But ultimately, it's all his own doing, and he has to face the consequences of that. And right now, he's not confronting that for whatever reason. Whether he will do again soon, whether he plays at the US Open or the Open Championship, who knows? Whether he plays at the first live golf event in London, I don't know. I mean, it's just, we'll have to wait and see. Phil's kind of the Howard Hughes of the golf world right now. He's kind of gone into hiding. He's living in the top of a Las Vegas hotel. We'll never see him again. But ultimately, I think it's sad because Phil, whether you like him or not, whether you're a fan or not, whether you're a fan now or not a fan now, he's one of the best players of all time. He's certainly one of the most exciting players of all time. He gave us a great thrill last year. And from my perspective as a golf fan, it's sad we're not getting to watch that right now. But there's certainly a bigger picture that he is yet to fully confront. So I'm not sure what you think about that, Fred, but to me, it's sad, but ultimately it is all his own doing. He's choosing to do this, and only he knows really the answer as to why that is.
To me, Kieran, it's just totally baffling. He's going to have to return to play sometime. I don't care if it's the Podunk Open, he's going to have to return sometime, and not to defend at a title that he won last year. Yeah. He clearly beat the field, one of the oldest player to ever win a major championship, a tremendous victory for him where he really set himself above everyone else. It's just totally baffling that he doesn't want to come back and be involved in that. I understand. I mean, he is angered, not only the PGA Tour, other members of the tour and the Saudi government, but he just can't hide out forever, can he? Yeah, I mean, if you get thrown off the horse, you got to get back on. Yeah. Phil made a huge double bogey, but in golf, you still got to play the next shot. It's not about the last shot. It's not about where you made the triple. It's not where you hit it in the water. You got to play the next shot. So you took a header. Come on, man, suck it up, Buttercup. Let's get back in the game.
It's interesting, though, Fred. It's interesting. We have Phil, who's, as we know, famously and now perhaps infamously, is the biggest gambler in the game. A guy that gambles over everything.
Well, next to John Daly.
And next to John Daly, he takes every shot on. He's always willing to roll the dice. But right now, it seems to me that he doesn't really know what his next play is. And that must be a really unsettling position for someone who is so self-assured, as Phil Mickelson has always been. He just doesn't know right now what he's going to do. And that is a really strange position for him to be in.
Let's talk about a guy that's coming in with a little bit of mojo. There's a guy that wears the red shirt on Sunday. Like I said, he's usually the biggest story. And even coming back for his second major appearance since his wreck and almost losing his leg, he's got to take a little bit of a back door, to Phil. But what we saw him play at the Masters, and it almost looked like it kind of hurt to watch him. What do you expect out of Tiger at Southern Hills?
Well, I saw a swing video that was taken by, I think, Jeff Shackelford from Southern Hills at the weekend of Tiger. And I looked at him swinging in the golf club and I thought, how does this guy do this? He looked incredibly good. And you think he is a once in a lifetime athlete, person, individual, human being. There's no one else who could possibly do this. It's astonishing. From what we saw at Augusta, obviously 5 weeks ago to now, I expect him to be stronger, to be further along in his recovery. He looks better. He seems to feel better. It's not quite as undulating a golf course to walk, because Augusta apparently is relatively undulating, but obviously not quite to the scale that Augusta is with the huge hills and all that stuff. So I think Tiger's looking better, feeling better, looks to be swinging well. So I expect him to play even better than what he did at the Masters, which of course was amazing that he made the cut and played all 4 rounds. And I think crucially, he will have a little bit more stamina on the weekend here than what he had at the Masters, where clearly, as you said, Fred, he certainly struggled in the last 2 days, and it did look like a really painful walk for him. Now, whether he's strong enough to contend here, I don't know. I mean, it seems folly to rule Tiger out of anything, but I do expect him to play all 4 rounds here, make the cut, and to have made progress from what we saw in April. So whether that's a top 25, top 20 finish, I can certainly see that. And I certainly see him, building along and progressing again as we come towards Brookline next month. And then perhaps even more so, we come to the 150th Open at St. Andrews, where I think that's the one for him. He's thinking, right, this is one last chance to have a go at winning the Open at the old course. And if he keeps progressing as he seems to, then, who knows? So I think we shouldn't forget about how amazing it is, Fred, to have Tiger Woods back and playing here. I mean, from where he was last February to now, it's an astonishing story. It's an amazing achievement. And as I say, he is a once-in-a-lifetime individual. And I expect him to remain and play remarkably well this week. And somehow he'll play incredibly well. but it will somehow feel normal. And that's what Tiger does. He makes the extraordinary seem ordinary because he is that good. And I think he'll play well this week.
Yeah, there are pictures on Twitter of Tiger playing a practice round on Sunday and playing another 9 holes on Monday. So he's out there. Southern Hills is hilly, but it's not as bad as Augusta National would be. But we referenced Augusta National before, like the greens, okay?
Yeah.
And Tiger can putt Augusta National greens with his eyes closed. So I expect him around the greens to be quite good. And so the other factor for him is the stamina that you mentioned. He did tire out on the weekend for sure. And he just ran out of gas. And he said he is stronger. He feels a little bit better. The pain's going to be there. It's still going to, he's still going to have the problem. But, he's obviously playing a little bit better. He's had another month to prepare. I don't know if I expect him to contend, but like you, I wouldn't be surprised with a top 25 or, making the cut and being in the tournament on the weekend. So I can't wait to watch. I watched almost every minute of the Masters. So I'm sure I'm going to try and watch every minute I can of the PGA.
Yeah.
Kieran, we saw Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Hideki, and Xander Schauffele, plus Scotty Scheffler too. I forgot to put his name in there. All played pretty well last weekend at the Byron Nelson in Dallas. So what do you think about their chances this week at Southern Hills?
Well, we mentioned Tiger being a story. Jordan Spieth is also a story at the PGA, obviously the last leg for him in terms of completing the career Grand Slam. And he's coming into this week, obviously in great form. Won at Hilton Head. He played very well at Byron Nelson. Seemed to actually be driving the ball really well. He seems to have actually eradicated that two-way miss that he had going on for a while last year. And so he's now much more consistent off the tee. And obviously he does that. He has a chance to play well. We all know how good he is with the irons, how good he is with his short game, and he's putting on his day. And if he has that form, then he can certainly play well here. I mentioned earlier, he came through with Justin Thomas and played a practice round at Southern Hills and liked the golf course. Seemed to appreciate the challenge of it. So, yeah, I think he's a factor here. I think he'll play well here. Likewise, Justin Thomas. It's about time for him to have a strong go. One of these majors, obviously, coming 5 years after he won the PGA. It's a while for him now to get back into that position. And Hideki, his Masters defence was blighted, of course, by injury beforehand, but he still managed to finish 14th place there. So he's been playing some very good golf in the past, really since he won the Zozo back in Japan in the fall of last year. Obviously won the Sony, very solid performances since then. I think Hideki's a player now who has that major, monkey off his back. He's now got that freedom now to go on and potentially win a second, and it wouldn't surprise me. Xander Schauffele has all the tools. The one caveat is, though, he's not won enough in his career relative to his own ability. And that's still the question mark over him. In those last 5-6 holes, has he got that edge to win these tight majors? We saw it in the Masters last year when he had that position, and obviously lost out to Matsuyama when he kind of threw it away in the 16th, and that's maybe a little scar tissue there. So I think all these guys have great potential, Fred, but for me, the standout of them is actually Jordan Spieth. I think Jordan Spieth has a great chance. I think he's one of these players who he comes in, he gets on hot spells, hot runs, as we've seen in the past in his career. He tends to put together, really good weeks in succession when he gets going, and obviously played great last week, won at Hilton Head. I think he'll contend here. And if he wins, obviously, that would be historic. And I think the game is crying out for another Grand Slam winner. Obviously, Rory's on that precipice. I think this generation of young player now, obviously Tiger did it, 20 years ago now, and someone else now step up and complete that career Grand Slam and really etch their name as one of the all-time greats. Rory's on the edge of it. Jordan Spieth's right there. And you know what? Spieth might just pit Rory and win all four before he does. So I'm looking forward to all these guys playing well, but I'm keeping a close eye on Spieth this week.
Yeah, I watched Xander Schauffele close out his round yesterday. Shot just a little 61 yesterday.
Indeed.
At there in McKinney, Texas. He ended up at 23 under, which put him at T5, but he was a leader in the clubhouse, but he was a full hour or so ahead of the leaders. So, he had everything working on Sunday. So if he can take that into Southern Hills, he's going to be a factor. Jordan Spieth, you're exactly right. The game is crying out. The Tiger is the guy. He moves. He is the needle, okay? But the guy that everybody wants to slide in there and everybody likes to watch is Jordan Spieth. Mm-hmm. When Spieth is in contention, the TV numbers go up on the weekend for sure. And so even with his, oh my goodness, the pre-shot hysterics that he goes through or whatever gyrations he goes through, it almost hurts. I kind of have to look away when he's doing that. But he is the guy that people want to see. And he's coming in on playing really good golf this year. Hideki always seems to do well on good golf courses. That where he won at the Zozo, he did well. He's won at the Masters. Southern Hills greens are very similar to all those golf courses where he's already won on. So I look for him to have a very good week. And then the guy, Justin Thomas, I've been telling Carlos all year that Justin Thomas is very close to playing fantastic golf. He's playing shots. He's not just lining up and bombing it down there. He's fading it. He's hitting it low. He's hitting it high. He's hitting draws. He's hitting what the shot calls for. He hasn't been quite there 100% all the time, but he's been about 80%, 85%. If he can get that in and be on top of his putting, he could be a real factor this week. And I look for Justin Thomas to be a guy. Just a quick mention about Scotty Scheffler. He won the Masters. He ended up, I think, T15 or something last week. So he had a good week, but there was no stress. He doesn't have a big hangover coming in from last week or anything where he was stressed or anything, so I think he could be a guy as well. So Kieran, it's time. Let's put our picks.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. We're down to the serious business here. The top 12 in the world right now: Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Collin Morikawa, Cam Smith, who we have not talked about, Patrick Cantley, Hovland, Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, and then we got Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Hideki, and DJ. A couple of those guys we have not talked about. Do you like any of those guys, or who do you think is going to be on the who's your 5 picks for this week?
Well, you mentioned Scotty Scheffler, and it's worth mentioning that when he won at Augusta, he did comment that Southern Hills is his favourite golf course that he's played. Now, that was before the restoration. He hasn't been back since Gil Hans got his fingers and started manipulating it. So it's not quite the same golf course, but he likes this venue. He's played here before. He feels comfortable here. So that bodes well for him. Obviously, just a fabulous player. Won 4 times this year. Major champion, Masters champion. Yeah, he can do anything. If he wins here, it wouldn't be a surprise at all. Jordan Spieth, I mentioned earlier, I believe in the history. I believe in the story. I believe in the man. I believe it all. I think he's, again, what makes him so compelling, you mentioned the idiosyncrasy, kind of the quirk of his pre-shot routine, the fact he hits some staggeringly bad shots at times. To me, that makes him more relatable, makes him more engaging as a golfer. I find
you can understand bad shots.
I'm an expert in bad shots, Fred. But the difference is, though, he then hits 5 world-class shots after that. I don't. But it makes him compelling to watch. I also love Matt Fitzpatrick, Fred, just outside the world's top 12 at the moment. A great short game, great on the greens. Played very well recently at the Wells Fargo, finished second there. So I think he could do well here. Shane Lowry, he played great at the Masters, finished third at Hilton Head the week after that. So enjoys these classic style golf courses. Again, great touch and feel, hits the ball a good distance, but around the greens, he can be a magician. I think he'll do well here. Elsewhere, Fred, I pick out Max Homa. Max been great form this year. Great all-round game. Very solid player. Doesn't make many mistakes. I think he's someone who now, the next step for him is, can he contend in one of the big majors? Because now he's proven he can be a consistent winner on the PGA Tour at some great golf courses. And he won at Riviera last year. So you can win there. You can win somewhere like Southern Hills. But again, there's that kind of classic architecture style venue. And also look at someone like Rory McIlroy, who again had that wonderful run at the Masters, played decently at the Wells Fargo, has been putting really, really well of late. He's been fantastic on the greens. Oddly enough, his long game hasn't been at its best. If he can tighten up the irons here, I think he can certainly play well around this golf course. Whether he wins or not, I don't know. But, just behind, Spieth as a story, Rory getting back in the winner's circle in the major is right up there as a story. And I'd love to see that happen too. In terms of real outsiders, Fred, I would like to see Jason Day roll back the years. I think he's had little flashes of decent golf this year. I think he finished third at the Torrey
Can't
Pines.
seem to maintain it, Kenny.
He can't put 4 rounds together. But I'd like to see him kind of make progress and try and find his way back to where he was before, because this is the kind of golf course he should play well at, because his strength has always been, on the greens, fantastic putter. If he can get back to that, then he could do all right here. But maybe a bit of a stretch, but I'd like to see him play quite well, given what he's been through this year. And again, what a great player he was, and he won the PGA at Whistling Straits. And we can't rule out Tiger Woods, can we, Fred? It wouldn't surprise me if he's on that first page on the leaderboard on Thursday. Whether he stays there or not, I don't know. But it wouldn't shock me if Tiger goes out there and he's in the top 5 or 8 players after the first day or two. Again, in terms of players to watch, Tiger Woods is going to be top of the list. But in terms of a winner, I like Jordan Spieth. It's happening. There you go.
You heard it here first.
I'm declaring it. Yeah, I'm declaring it.
He got the international guys in there, the European guys in there, but he's going back with Spieth. So
I'm going with the American. Yeah.
Women want to be with him, and Kieran wants to be like him.
Possibly.
Well, someone we haven't talked about a lot, my guy, Colin Morikawa. I pick him every time.
I knew you'd mention him.
Yeah, I love Colin. I really think this is a perfect venue for him. He has 6 top 10s in just 10 starts this year. 2 of them have been runner-ups. He is ready to win again. I think he's won one of these PGAs before, so he knows what it's all about. I mentioned Justin Thomas earlier. I really like Justin Thomas this week as well. If I were going to pick an international player, I guess it would be Hideki. I think he is playing very good golf right now, and I think this is a very good golf course for him. So I like that. I do, John Rahm has not been, the John Rahm that we have seen in the past. So maybe he could jump up and do something, but he's just not been that guy lately. Rory, Enigma, starts really, really slow on Thursday and Friday, turns it on the burners on Saturday and Sunday, but he's too far back. He can't catch up. If he could get off before COVID, he was the best player in the world by far. Nobody was even close to him. Yeah. Since we came back from COVID in 2020, in July 2020, he just hasn't been the same guy, and he doesn't seem to have the energy level. He just doesn't seem to have it. I don't know what it is. Other international players, Hovland, Joaquin Niemann, maybe Cam Smith, because of Smith's putting ability, certainly on these greens. And that's where Retief Goosen, if you remember, when he won the U.S. Open, he was
2001,
he was putting fantastic. So I think Spieth's putting too much pressure on himself. I think he pressed too much on Sunday in the Dallas event. He really wanted to win that. I think he's just still putting too much pressure on himself. I think that's his problem. We haven't talked anything about Patrick Cantley, and he's certainly one of the best players in the world right now. And this course he should do very well on. So all that being said, I'm going to say Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Colin, Patrick Cantley, and since Carlos isn't here, I'm going to pick his guy, Hideki.
Oh, that's beautiful, Fred.
How
lovely
about
stuff.
That?
Oh, you're such a pal. Fantastic.
So I think that pretty much wraps up. We gave you who we think our winners or who our contenders are going to be this week. We talked about the Phil thing. We talked about Tiger. Anything else? We got just a couple minutes left. Anything else you want to talk about, Kieran, before we close her up?
No, I think obviously we touched it earlier. I mean, obviously there's a lot of strange goings on in the game coming into this PGA Championship. Obviously, the Phil has hung over a cloud over it all. Not having the defending champion here is a real miss, particularly given the magnitude of the story last year. But I think Tiger being here elevates things, obviously. And I think the golf course will be a real star this week too. I think the PGA, it's kind of it might very well be the fourth of the majors in terms of prestige, but I think more often than not, it actually delivers a really good event in terms of a spectacle. And I expect this week to be the same, where yes, it doesn't have the same drama as the Masters or the history of the Open Championship or the prestige of the US Open, but the PGA is better than most, and I think it's a fabulous event, and I think this will be another fine edition of it. And of course, whoever wins it gets to lift the biggest trophy in the game, the Wanamaker. So yeah, it should be good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, moving from August into May, I think has really helped the PGA. It's made it more of a must kind of watch kind of thing. When it was in August, it was all kind of, we're sliding into the end of the season, we're working into the FedEx Cup. But this really brings importance to it. And being at Southern Hills, you know, the PGA likes to go to courses they own, so they don't have to spend money. And they're going to be going to Frisco, but I really think this Southern Hills is a class venue for them. And I really look forward to seeing the guys play there. So, Kieran, thanks so much for coming in tonight, talking with us and giving us your perspective as always. So golf fans, be sure and watch the PGA Championship this weekend. Check out Back Nine Report. The link is right here. Go ahead and follow us there. So, and we'll see you next time.